My name is Madelein Mkunu. I am the president of Leading Women of Africa. This is really a Pan-African institution advancing women's leadership, entrepreneurship, and African regional integration. I'm also the convener of Beyond Boundaries, this platform that we are using, which is really dedicated to amplify African voices, especially women voices in global affairs, geopolitics, governance, and development. So it is my honor to welcome you all to another session of Women in Geopolitics debate series. And yeah, we continue with the topic on women issues and so on. And today we will look at women trade and economic power. Can economic inclusion of women transform Africa? That's really the topic that we'll be looking at today, but I mustn't forget it is still International Women's Month. So happy International Women's Day or month to all the women in the room and to all the women that will watch us. So as we know, during the month of March, it's actually a month where we continue to reflect on women's rights, women participation, and women's leadership. Last week, we examined how can African women emerge as successful leaders across politics, corporate governance, business, entrepreneurship, and also what structural reforms are required to make their leadership the norm rather than exception. So, this episode, we continue in the same line, but today we examine women not only as entrepreneurs, but women as strategic actors in the Africa's economic future. As we know, Africa really standing at a pivotal moment. We all can watch the world. We can see how the world is shifting. Every day there is a story. We can watch Middle East. We can watch Europe. We can watch US. We can see that everywhere. The world is shifting. What we know the story of yesterday on how business was managing or how politics was being managed is not business as usual anymore. We are talking today, we are looking at the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which represents really one of the most ambitious economic integration projects around the world, with the potential, we know the potential market today of Africa, over 1.3 billion. So we believe that AfCFTA offers unprecedented opportunities for industrialization, intra-African trade, and regional value chain. Yet, the success really of these Pan-African projects will depend largely really, I must emphasize, it's depend largely on whether women will constitute a part of that journey. We need to remember that women really make up a significant share of Africa's entrepreneurs and agricultural producers and even informal cross-border trade. So they really are significant, or they're making a meaningful contribution in Africa's economy. So the implementation even of the African Continental Free Trade Area will depend on are women participating on this process. So the debate today is really critical, especially to geopolitics, considering the position of Africa at the moment. So the question that we want to ask today, can economic inclusion of women become a stabilizing force for Africa, meaning reducing inequality, strengthening regional economies, and contributing in long-term peace and stability of the continent. So, let me introduce the speakers that will join us today. We will hear from Dr. Elizabeth Serra, who's joining us from Portugal. She was just telling us earlier on that she was born in Angola and her passion for Africa never dies. So we're going to hear from her. She is an associate professor and management scientist who works her work bridges the academic research and practical strategies. She brings extensive experience in international business, marketing, research, innovation, and strategic consulting across more than 20 industries globally. She also brings a valuable global perspective on market, trade, and economic transformation. We will also hear from Mr. Habimana Robert, a senior statistician and research officer at Uganda Bureau of Statistics. His expertise span from macroeconomic statistics, trade, public finance, and development economics. Last but not least, we will hear from Dr. Desi Owomugasho, a development economist and executive director of Coterie Development Initiative. Dr. Desi has extensive experience in advancing community development, gender equality, and economic justice across Africa, and even represented the region at Global Policy Forum, including the UN High-Level Political Forum. So it's really our honor to have you, and you are more than welcome. Let me get started. Let's start with Dr. Desi. This is a geopolitics question that we want to hear really your perspective. As a development economist that you are with expertise, as we heard, on global policies, including UN high-level political forum, as we keep hearing every time, Africa's long-term geopolitical influence will depend on its economic strength. We need to be mindful of that. Now, my question to you would be, how should we understand women's economic participation within the broader geopolitical landscape of Africa? I think in other words, what I want to say is, can strengthening women's economic power contribute to greater regional stability and resilience? Dr. Desi?
Yes, thank you so much, Madeleine, and thank you for the very interesting introduction. I'm happy to be here. And what you're asking right now is a very, very pertinent question. And in our times, we have the opportunity to contribute. We have the opportunity to question. We have the opportunity to highlight and be part of these processes. There are some which are changing slowly, but for some, there's been some sort of status quo over a prolonged period of time. And this is the one thing we have to understand. In most economies, actually in Africa, including Uganda, we find the proportionate number of women, the proportionate population of women is more than men. So you are starting there. Women are more than men in most of our economies. And so they have to be taken seriously. They have a big contribution to make to our economies. And given that there are many, but most importantly, again, they are disfavored in most of the, what you would call the interesting aspects. And if you are looking at it from the trade point of view in Africa, most of the traders, they are women and they are in the informal sector. They are trading, yes, but they don't own these big corporations with the really standardized procedures, standardized products and everything. They are in the informal sector. But that means they are operating on a medium or small scale. And when we're looking at, maybe I see that my Ugandan counterpart, especially in statistics, most of these also, they constitute the biggest number. They are micro and small enterprises, but they've been contributing significantly. Most of our economies are actually dependent or largely dependent on these women. And so, they are largely excluded from the formal trade systems. They are carrying things on their back, they are smuggling, they don't have money, they don't have clear-cut value chains. So they've been making significant contributions over time, but it just sort of disappears within the system. So it is time we need to actually recognize them, and strengthening their power, I believe it can actually significantly contribute to Africa's stability and resilience. First of all, as we have said, they've been driving our GDP. They've been driving jobs. They've been driving poverty. They've been supporting families, homes, and everywhere. Can we count how many people women have actually supported through their labor, by growing coffee, harvesting, planting, you can name it. They've been part and parcel of these processes. So how can we put this into sort of package it into a system, into laws, into areas in which they can actually be supported and also be able to support our economies more and be able to support the integration more. I believe that once they are supported, once they are streamlined, once there are systems in place, then they can be able to promote. And in some cases, we've been seeing them drive innovation, they drive diversity, they are into crafts, they are also reducing on single dependence industries. You're finding women putting up cottage industries. They are into crafts. So this is also somewhere which can act as a base for innovation and diversification. And there is also sort of that silent, I don't know whether we could call it silent, but the social impact of their work, especially as caregivers, they've tremendously, those who are in the small scale businesses, those who are transporting things across their heads, they are impacting education, they are impacting welfare, they are impacting stability, stability of the home, the family, and the country. So we need them. We need them as innovators. If there is a system for them, what do you think? What can create? What technology can we use to do this? To winnow millet, to do whatever. They can be part of that entrepreneurs, the innovators, and co-create solutions which can be used across the region. And of course, their continued exclusion or not being given enough space. We have seen somewhere like irregular migration. We have seen cases of social instability. Now, even instability within the homes. People are crossing borders, going to do some things maybe which are not right. So this is the time where we can strengthen their participation to be able to reduce vulnerability to conflict and also be part of this process. Yeah, I think when we look at it in a nutshell, we are seeing that their empowerment, their streamlining, their processes can be able to reduce poverty and improve living standards, as well as facilitating cross-border trade, regional cooperation and integration. But amidst all this, they have, I think a number of challenges, the myriad, the ones which we face at home, in our families, in our community, when it reaches sort of the border level, then they are sort of magnified. Yeah, so some cases have been cited of maybe like border harassment. You are a woman carrying your jerry can of something. Where are you taking it? You are facing issues to do with the trade, but also issues to do with the home. You're leaving your home to be able to go and make some business, and it's informal. So there's some form of harassment, and most importantly, because most lack documentation, no passport, no trade document, no trade license, no export license. Yeah, so what are you doing crossing a border? And if you caught in the wrong or the other side, I don't know which side, because if you don't have documentation, then maybe either side can say you are not from there. And that becomes a problem. There are also issues of lack of access to information. How do they know which laws, which trade policies, which ones are favoring who, which ones they can use, which one they can rely on? So that limited access of trade information becomes very critical, as well as the high transaction costs. But given these challenges, we can also see that, yeah, it's high time the women can actually drive success. They can expand the reach if there are some clear areas which are put in place in terms of, for example, the tariffs. How much money are they supposed to pay? Are they supposed to pay the same as this the manufacturer, the big exporter? Are they supposed to pay the same? What are the customs procedures? So these are all areas which maybe once addressed, they can be able to help. We have some value chains they can be part of. This craft industry I've talked about, to the textiles, the agriculture, they are the major, the ones highly involved in agriculture. So can they help in this regard? They can help in leadership and advocacy. And I'm happy here leading Women of Africa and Beyond the Boundaries. You are doing your part. So how can we advocate and have leadership structures that can support these women? And also, of course, reducing that external dependency and also the economic empowerment. So what I want to just point out are maybe some things we need to look at, which involve addressing the structural barriers. What are these issues? Issues to do with the finance, issues to do with the policy, issues with the value chains which hinder women's economic participation, and also our part in the leadership. Are we leaders? Why? To what extent can women be comfortable in transforming, in leading, in seeking for policy changes? So this is an area in which we can consider, and also skills. So I will ask some of the skills, skills for negotiation. How do I negotiate with somebody? I said from Mozambique, from Portugal. I need to export this. I even don't know Portuguese. I don't know where to get an interpreter. So there are some skills we need also for cross-border. And to me, some of the strategies we are looking at is the one, leadership and representation, to make sure that women are part of the negotiations and decision-making committees. Do we have anybody there? We need to have some sort of representation. We need something to facilitate this trade we are talking about, to simplify procedures and reduce barriers. Sometimes they say they are making even booklets. Even the booklets, you can't read through and know what to do. So we need that. We need access to finance. These are some of the strategies. Access to finance to help women-led businesses to scale and participate in these regional and beyond markets, processes, value chains. You can't be crossing the border with something on your head and then expect, but this is volume. How much money? When will you ever get enough capital? When will you ever? So we need access to finance, and also the market access. There can be some programs which say maybe show, yeah, in South Africa there's this there's this market for groundnuts, or this one there's a shortage, or there's whatever. So to support women entrepreneurs in accessing these value markets, especially the regional markets, especially along the value chains on which they are producing, and also, yeah, some sort of training, training in negotiation, training in export, training in some of those key documentation and all that, and also, of course, in trade and entrepreneurship. So I've taken a long time, but I believe this is maybe opening up the space. What I know is that empowering women is they are empowering Africa's trade future. If we don't empower the women, our trade future may also be compromised, or maybe slower than we really want it to be. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Definitely, you've tackled this question wholeheartedly. Yes, if we really do not bring women on the table, the trade in Africa is in trouble, just like you say. And I like the aspect that you brought of that disproportional, situation where women, population-wise, women are more than men, yet when you come to economic activities, women are still operating mainly in the informal sectors with not enough resources to actually have the impact that they have. But even they need to have. But even the little resources that they do have, I like the fact that you highlighted how much they are contributing in the society, how much they're contributing in a GDP, in job creation, and even the economy of the continent. It's actually depending on them. So it's definitely empowering them, bringing more women into position of decision making, and the impact. I think the impact will be really, really great. Thank you so much for those recommendations as well in terms of access to finance, access to markets, training on negotiation, and so on. We're really just relying on our policymakers to hear us, because this is the cry of every African woman. And you just highlighting that aspect of, women are there. Maybe let's bring our statistician to tell us how many women are there. What are we doing? What's your mirror telling you? Mr. Robert, tell us, the role of women. How can, women entrepreneurs and traders play the role of accelerating, so your stats can read a bit better, and yeah, so, maybe also to know, are there any trade frameworks, that are designed to include women, in the process of implementation of the free trade area?
Thank you so much, and thank you to my friend, Aino Mugasho. In our press here, Aino Mugasho means someone who has value. That's to begin with. And I can maybe interpret her name for you. She has value. That's the meaning of her name. I'm glad to be part of you today, and I'm really very excited that we are participating in these discussions. One thing that I know is that I'm born of a woman. My children are born of a woman. Even my grandchildren will be born of a woman, which is one of the critical things we have to understand. When I saw the topic on geopolitics, there's one thing that comes in my mind. One thing is that we usually discuss these geopolitical issues in conferences, in the workshops, and so on. But I can tell you, in economics, the geopolitical power is not only determined from the conferences, from the workshops, and so on. That starts from the farm, from industries, from the markets. Because what you see, even around the world, the economy is driven by who has what, who controls what. Mm-hmm. And when you look at how Africa is structured, even before I go to the role of women and so on, how Africa is structured, it's really absurd to talk about some of these things. But we should have these discussions, talk about the issues that are stressing us, stressing our economies, stressing our participation in the economies that are stressing us in terms of having power at the global level. One thing we know is that in Africa, we're about 1.4 billion people. And we're expected to be around 2.5 billion by 2050. And what does that mean to us? That means because the projection of the world population is expected to be around 10 billion by 2050, and Africa is projected to be around 2.5 by 2050. It means we are the global market. We have the highest proportion of the global market, and that's what we will have by 2050. But what we see in our economies is that when you look at the statistics, I was reading the report of the World Trade Organization Economic Outlook. While we are 2.5, we will be 2.5 billion by 2050, which is a quarter of the world population. Our intra-Africa trade is around 16%, meaning we are not trading within each other as Africans. But when you compare to European countries and Asian countries, it could be about 60 to 70%, them trading with each other. And what does it show? That instead of trading with ourselves, we are trading with outsiders. But there are implications to that in economic terms. When you go to Europe, like me who is in Uganda, instead of buying textile from Rwanda, if it is producing, then I'm going to Europe. There are transport costs that are involved. For example, when you were still at the World Trade Depot, Africa imports over 7 billion worth of textile in value, meaning they come from outside Africa. But look at Lesotho. Lesotho produces and exports around 240 million worth of textiles. So, and we are exporting 7 billion. So what's wrong with us in the first place? Why wouldn't we buy that 240 million from Lesotho instead of importing? Because the 240 million is less compared to what we import from outside other countries. So, and also what we see in Africa, in general, in trade, from what my elder has talked about, women are more in the informal sector. Women are more in the informal sector. And about 70 are trading informally, about 70% of women are trading formally. So 70% is a big number if they are trading formally. The issue is not whether they are participating in the global or in trade. They are participating, but the issue is they are participating with low productivity because of so many challenges. And meanwhile, the challenges I'm going to talk about, most of them are structural. And they are not negotiated, they are not even discussed at policy tables, at policy conferences, and so on. And those are structural challenges that are affecting women. Of course, I won't be shy to talk about some of them. I will talk about many of them as we evolve. And when we talk about the population, I talked about 2.5 billion vis-a-vis 10 billion for the world and 2.5 billion for Africa. And you know, one of the most arable lands are in Africa. We have free land, but which means our comparative advantage is we can do agriculture. The 10 billion and 2.5 billion that we expect in 2050, that population will need to be fed. And if they are to be fed, which means we are supposed to strengthen the agricultural processes, agricultural policies in Africa. And who are there? Who are in that? Who are in the agricultural production, the value chain of agriculture? Who are they? Big number is women. So if the area where we have a competitive advantage, it's women that are inclusive, but we are ignoring it. So what do we want? In the first place, we look as if we don't want anything. We look at the African free continental trade area, which has been there for some time, as far as I know. Does it mean that Africans have not seen these things? The free continental trade area, but we are only 16% trading with each other. And our commodities, but we are importing commodities which are even here in Africa. And in most of those commodities we are trading, because we are mostly what we export, we don't export services. We know that. Most things we export are agricultural commodities, isn't it? And who are there? The people who are there are women. If you would agree with me, women are mostly in agriculture, and that is the most thing we have a comparative advantage. Given the growing population, we can have that advantage of feeding the world, but we are not doing it. The other part I would also want to talk about are the structural challenges we have. For women, when we look at the things we don't discuss, even when we are discussing, even wherever we are discussing from, there are things we don't discuss. When women face credit, you know, the most important thing in trade is capital, which we know. And the capital is what drives growth. Whether it's for women, whether it's for men, capital is what drives growth. And when you look at it, is that women, we have policies, of course, like the constitutions that allows equal ownership or equal access to productive assets between men and women. But the issue is, are they implemented? They are not. They are not. Women now still in Africa face issues of ownership of productive assets, including land. And a typical woman in Uganda, let's take an example, who wants to trade, needs to get funding from the bank. the capital from the bank. And banks by nature, though we say we should have banks, they should customize products for women, banks are doing business. They work with the highest bidder. Who has what to give on the table is who is supposed to have the capital. And which comes now from the structural challenges. Women don't have access to collateral, which is now in most African countries, you take a land title. But also, less than 30% of the titles I can take, for example, in Uganda, are owned by women, less than 30%. But women, from what Dr. Daisy talked about, contributes 50% to the total population. But when it comes to owning assets, like land, they are less than 30%. So what do you want them to take to the bank first of all? Because the bank, by nature, the bank is a business venture, is not a charity organization. So it will give, when you come as a man, when you come as a woman, it will give to someone who brings something on the table. So the other part is now what we have really ignored to discuss, which is the most critical thing. In Africa, especially also in Uganda, Dr. Daisy can be a mere witness. When we look at how Uganda is in terms of culture, there's what they call marriage arrangements. Marriage arrangements, marriage is supposed to work for two, me and my woman. But there is an issue that has not been discussed, not that I'm discouraging it, but there is an issue that has not been discussed. When I go to Daisy, Dr. Daisy, and I need the daughter of Daisy, what happens is the family of Dr. Daisy will say, for you to take our daughter, we need these cows, we need this much of money for you to be with our daughter. And unless there is serious education, civic education, many see that, most men, because I have not carried out a study to see, but in most of the discussions I have had, once you give me your woman and I have paid some assets or some amount of money, eventually I dictate on the decisions. I dictate on the decisions that are supposed to be made at family level. Because I was the highest bidder anyway. I gave money, I gave some assets, I gave some cows to have you at my home. So if I am making a decision, my word counts more than yours. But these things are not discussed. Unless women, including us men, starts doing civic education in Africa, including Uganda, that perception is not about to change. I can tell you what is here. Of course, we have had women who have gone to school, who have had tangible assets, and most of those women, because they have gone to school, they can earn income. They have bought their own assets, which means for those few, which are few, of course, can present their assets to the bank and attain collateral, and they can have what? They can trade, because trade needs capital, and capital comes from financial institutions, which as a result of credit creation. So one of the issues we are grappling with is the mindset. For both men and women on the value of women. Because men traditionally they look at women as their assets as well, if you did know. And it's high time we start discussing some of these things on the table. The other part is that what is stressing more is that the other part is there is something, I don't know how to frame it, but there is the issues. Most policies, they are directed to what can we do for women. But that's not the question we should be answering. The question is, what can we work? How can we work with women? The issue is, because of that what can we do for women? And I can be honest and I tell you, most women feel that they are entitled. So they need to be helped. And because of that, there is serious vulnerability. If you wait, you think that government or your husband or other people, you need to be helped. You need to showcase yourself. What can you bring and what can you do with other people to shape the economy? And those are the most pressing things that are not being discussed. Away from those other big words, economic terms, and so on, there is what we need. We need to have mindset change, and we need to also have some transformation in terms of culture, because we have issues around there, land ownership, marriage arrangements, that makes women vulnerable. I can tell you, if these things are addressed, so many other things will be addressed along the way. But I'm very happy that these discussions are happening, and we continue to give our ideas, to give our opinions. Our opinions may not matter to so many people, but at least we have had discussions. Our children can start there, even children of our children will start there until we get these things right. Because the geopolitics, the global power is attained by who produces what and who markets what. Our president always tells us that the issue is, what do you produce and do you have the market for it? And that geopolitical power is shaped by that, apart from the big words of economics, of politics, and so on. Once you decide on what to produce, and that's where now our women can contribute more. Because most of what we showcase to the world is produced by women. So if we cannot support them, then we don't think that our economies are ready to take off. I think that would be my contribution, and
thank you so much, Robert, really for these issues that you say are not being discussed. They might not be big words, but they are very, very important. And I just like your conclusion that most of the things that are being used and exported are actually produced by women. So while I love the question, one question that you ask in between there, that sometimes it's being discussed around the table, what is the value of a woman? Oh my goodness. Yes, but your conclusion when it comes to policies, I think this is what we need to focus on. Most policies, and I know my husband as well, just always highlights this. Most policies, or the question for most policies are like, what can we do for women? What can we do for women? As if women are not able to do anything for themselves. But I think the way you put it, instead, policymakers should ask, what can we do with women? I think that will change everything, because women need to be part of those negotiations and policy formulation. I could see comment in a chat, but let's first hear from Elizabeth, from her perspective on, I mean, with your experience on international business and bringing this global perspective into markets and trade and economic transformation. We often discuss around economic inclusion, that it need to include everyone. So now talking about, I think we've just heard from Mr. Robert here from the start and so on, that really until we bring women on a table, we're not going to get anywhere. So can expanding economic opportunities to women really, I'm sure you can bring as well the Portugal or the European example. Does it really help to reduce the inequality or the instability, the unemployment?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Good morning to all of us. And it's a great honor to be here with you today and to discuss an issue that truly matters. I will make my thoughts, okay, not as a researcher, an academic woman, but mainly as someone that is a partner of a company, a group based in Germany, Pulsar Consulting, and the one that I have been working since 10 years ago, that is Pulsar Develop, based in UK. And it was a man who incentivized me to be together with you. So I think I'm a lucky woman to work with these kind of people, these kind of people that motivate us every day to give our best. And in this way, what I'm bringing today is something a little different, because my intention is to make a bridge between Africa, where I was born in Angola, and I have attending also a very good friend of mine. Good morning, Eunice. I'm very happy that you could be with us. Eunice is based in South Africa, and it will be our representative also from Pulsar in South Africa. So, Madeleine, I'm sorry, I share the link with Eunice to be with us today too. Okay, so it's really the issue that we are today discuss. It's an issue that truly matters, because when we talk about women and economy, we are not talking about a minority. We are talking about half of the whole productive power. If tomorrow every woman in Africa had the same access to finance, trade networks, and markets as men, we will not only be discussing gender equality, we will be witnessing one of the greatest economic transformation of the 21st century. But the truth is this: women across the world are already driving economies, often invisible, often informally, and often without the tools we deserve. As a European human, I'm not here to suggest that Europe has solved this challenge. We can bring his experience, our partnership, and the conviction that when women gain economic power, societies become more stable, more prosperous, and more resilient. So the topic that we are discussing today, women, trade, economic power, for me, it's not simple a gender debate, honestly. It's a strategic economic question. Because when women are excluded from economic system, countries are not just losing equality, they are losing productivity, innovation, stability, and growth. And when women are economically empowered, the opposite happens. Families invest more in education, communities become more resilient, markets become more diverse and dynamic. In other words, women's economic participation is not a social policy. It is an economic strategy. And I'm going to share with you a personal story. Some years ago in Angola, where I was born, so I'm also an African a woman from Africa. I had the opportunity to meet women entrepreneurs. We were running business with very limited resource, but extraordinary determination. What struck me most was not the challenge they faced, it was their resilience and creativity. One woman told me something that I never forgotten. We are not asking for help. We are asking for opportunity. And you know, one thing, that sentence stay with me because it perfectly captured the real issue that I think we are discussing today. The question is not whether women are capable of transforming economies. They already are. The question is whether our systems are ready to give us the access we deserve. So, as a European woman, I come from a continent that has made important progress in women's economic participation. There's no doubt about this. European societies have invested in education and professional training for women. I'm a teacher, and I welcome a lot of sisters from Africa as my students more and more and more. So this is a trend that is changing too. Another point important is, and we already discussed this, is the legal protections against workplace discrimination. We still have in Europe. It's not easy. And the parental leave and the child care system and support programs for women entrepreneurs. These policies have helped millions of women enter the workforce and build business. But let me be clear, Europe is still far from perfect. We still face a persistent gender pay gap, another representation of women in corporate leadership. This is the most noticeable. We still have lower access to venture capital and investment. So Europe does not come here with a finished model. What we bring, maybe, is experience, both successes and lessons learned. So in my perspective, Africa does not lack women entrepreneurs. What many women lack in Africa is not ambition, it is access. So when we look at Africa, we often hear narratives about barriers. Today, we already listed this. But what I see is an extraordinary potential. Africa has one of the highest rates of female entrepreneurship in the world. In Africa, women are already running small business, driving local markets, leading cross-border informal trade networks, supporting entire families and communities. Yet many of these women operate without access to formal finance, and we told about already, infrastructure, or international markets. And this is a point that I think we could change together. This is not a lack of talent or ambition. It is simple a lack of access. And when access expands, transformation follows. Economic inclusion also has a profound effect on stability. Countries where women participate fully in economic life tend to experience strong social cohesions, more diversified economies, greater resilience during economic shocks, like the one we are near to live again, or we are living already. When women earn income, they reinvest significantly in their families and communities. Education improves, health improves, long-term development accelerates, So this is why, for me, in my perspective, empowering women economically is not a development strategy, it's a stability strategy. So the most important question today, for me, in my perspective, is not what Africa should do alone or what Europe should do alone. The main question for me is how can we build economic bridges between women on both continents? And there are several ways I think we can do this. Trade partnership between entrepreneurs in Africa and Europe can open new markets and create ethical supply chains. From agriculture to fashion to technology, women-led business can connect it across continents. European investors and financial institutions can play a key role by increasing funding for women-led business in Africa, not only through microfinance, but through growth capital, venture capital, and impact investment. Because women entrepreneurs are not only building small business, many are ready to scale. And one of the most powerful tools we have is knowledge sharing, what we are doing today. Imagine networks where women leaders in business, policies, technology, and finance can collaborate across continents. This learning should go both ways. Africa has innovation, adaptability, and entrepreneurial resilience that Europe can learn from as well. So I think that a very important point is to build digital bridge, like we are doing today. Technologies is also transforming economic participation. Digital platforms, fintech solution, e-commerce are allowing entrepreneurs to reach global markets without traditional barriers. We do this already. For many women, digital access can mean direct entry into the global economy. So the future relationship, in my view, between Europe and Africa should not be defined by head. It should be defined by economic partnership, a partnership where us, women, are investors, entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders in trade. When women from different continents collaborate economically, they do something very powerful. I have this experience because since 16 years ago, I'm based in Portugal, but I work with international markets and I cross with several amazing women. I have one with us today, with whom I try to work almost every day, that is Mrs. Eunice. We build networks of trust, opportunity, and growth. And those networks often become stronger than political agreements. Imagine for a moment what our economy could look like if every woman entrepreneur had the same access to markets, finance, and network as our male counterparts. So the question for me, honestly, is not whether women can transform economic systems. We already are doing this. The real question is whether our institutions, our policies, and our partnerships are ready to support them. Because when women gain economic power, we do more than grow business. We strengthen families, we stabilize communities, we build bridges between societies. And perhaps this is the most important message for me today. Empowering women economically, it's not just about fairness. It's about building stronger economies, more stable societies, and a more connected world. So the real question is not whether women can transform economies. The question is whether economies are ready to stop holding us back. And advancing some powerful statistics that our colleague already talked about to strengthen this argument. So the advancing gender equality in economic participation could add 12 trillion to global GDP with dates from 2025. And this showed the economic scale of inclusion. And if we look to data from the World Bank, we saw that Africa has the highest rate of female entrepreneurship in the world, with women representing around 58% of self-employed people in some African economies. So in my message, the foundation already exists. And maybe we need to think in another perspective. And what if we create, for instance, a Europe-Africa women trade region, a platform where women entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators from both economies collaborate directly, not only talk, not only to discuss what the gaps, okay, but try to move a bit more, move on a bit more, that we can put on the table our challenge of business every day and try to join, try to head, instead to make this kind of look from Europe to Africa and so on. We are the same in Africa, in Europe, everywhere. So I think my mission here in this association is not to act as a development project or to work in development project, but as an economic partnership designed to unlock the enormous potential of women-led business. This is for me to adopt a strategic and a solution oriented, because I'm sure that when women gain economic power, we don't just change markets, we change the future. And the future of economic cooperation between Europe and Africa should not be built on dependence. It should be built on partnership. Partnership where women are not only participants in the economy, but leaders shaping its direction. Because like I told you, when women gain economic power, something extraordinary happens. Business grow, communities stabilize, and opportunities expand across generations. So if we truly want stronger economies in Africa, in Europe, whatever, and to create more stable societies, so then the path is clear. We need to invest, we need to show that investing in women, trust in women, and build the bridge between us that allow our talent to transform the world. So now, and is my first time that I'm participating with you, this is my message. I'm ready to open my doors of my company to work with you all, to help in all the points that you consider that we can together make the difference, because your fight is the same I have every day of my life. So it's
great. Wow, so much for that contribution, really powerful contribution. Let's just unpack a little bit what Elizabeth was saying. First of all, we need to, I love the point that you made from a group of women in Angola that say, you know what, we're not looking for help. We are not asking for help. We are asking for opportunities. That is key, number one, because that is, remember, Robert was talking about the change, the mind shift. The mind shift need to happen. Instead of saying, we need help, no, we're not asking for any help.
We
And
don't
I
need.
think this is a message that as African women, we need to adopt. We need to change our mind as Africans to think that we need help always. We need Europe to come help us. We need US to come help us. No, what we need is opportunities, and we need to spell it loud and clear. So that is the point number one. Point number two that it's close to my heart, that you highlighted here is the most that what women need the most is access, and it could be access to anything. But I think what you highlighted here is very important, and I think everyone in the room and those who will hear us after, we need to really see how we can build this model. You came up with the idea of Africa-Europe trade bridge, where women can lead trade. I think this is really an opportunity that we need. Robert was talking about in agri-space, in even textile space, are women, so how can we create a channel, between Africa and Europe so that we can start really trading, but it needs to be handled by women and not depending on anyone else. And so I think really my conclusion from what you say is what you keep insisting all the time, is that economic empowerment of women is not a development strategy, it's a stability strategy. I love that, because like you keep saying, when a woman is economically empowered, things will change starting from her family, and they contribute so much. So, and yeah, what Africa need indeed, with your conclusion, we agree, is not dependency.
Yeah.
It is partnership. We are tired, as Africans, we are tired of being dependent. It's now time, the new generation, and I'm glad some youth are in the room. The new generation, we need to have that mind shift that Robert has told us. We need to have that mind shift. We cannot continue to depend. We actually have a lot to bring on a table. And Robert asked us a question. I think when they're making those policies, they're asking, or the geopolitics is about who's producing what, who's bringing what on a table. I think Africa has a lot to bring on a table. Africa is already bringing so much on a table. So geopolitically, we have value. We are bringing value into this global economic developments that we are aspiring to. So thank you so much. Before we go to the second round, let's just include our audience, what they saying on the chat. Let me see if I could get previous ones. Just bear with me. Okay. Okay, those were just introduction. All right, so Prof. Shainul, yes, Banji, was saying that glad to attend. In India, the informal sector is largely assisted, opening up in the market by promoting the rural sector, handicrafts and embroidery. All right, so that will be beneficial to all. Dr. Daisy, how can women living in arid and semi-arid environments be empowered to overcome cultural barriers and to participate in animal trade? Dr. Daisy, that is a question for you, or maybe anyone in the group can also participate in that question. Tolakele is looking. I wish to meet her. I'm also in South Africa. Yes, Tolakele, maybe you can give a bit more details there. I'm loving what Miss Elizabeth is saying. Okay, it is critical at these points that people know how to learn to apply it. Okay, great, great. There are just so many comments there. And we must not forget, at the end, we need to discuss that Europe-Africa trade gap. So after the meeting, please don't leave yet, because we would like to discuss that and see how we can actually implement that. Right. Let's just go back to Dr. Desi. Dr. Desi, I think you're going to first attend to that question.
Okay.
To that question that you've been asked. But before you get to that, okay, so Elizabeth bring already the aspect of how we can uplift those women in informal trade. There is a trade market that could be open, that we can actually, make those businesses grow. And like she says, it's not only growing the business, it's actually creating a stable environment, a stable community, stable family, and so on. So across many parts of Africa, women dominate the informal sector, as we know. And I think even yourself, Dr. Desi, you alluded to that fact. What one piece of research or of stats that Robert brought was that on Africa with trading, I think the intra-African trade, if I'm not mistaken, was 16%. So now we're looking at, now let's link that 16%. We're not trading amongst ourselves. So we could actually link to even that 16%. It could be actually coming from informal traders, that are moving from one border to another, bringing bananas here, bringing cashews here, and bringing this. So I think even that 16%, could actually be, being contributed by informal trade. Right. So now my question to you, Dr. Desi, will be how can African governments, better integrate that informal women traders into the formal systems, while still, protecting that livelihood and so on. It will really lead us to what we're trying to now put together, that trade bridge that Elizabeth proposed. But how can African governments now help?
Starting with the question, and then I'll move on. And this ties in with what Robert said and what the previous speaker said. And what you have just said, as Madeleine, the issue of mindset change. We have been tied to these systems. We grow up in them. We stay with the same men in office, husbands at home, and everything sort of, we are like in a chain. And we need to see and know that it's time we realized our potential and our strength. And that is the only way we can liberate ourselves. The more people we have who have achieved this, who can try and say, okay, I don't have to be this, I don't have to put up with this, I can do better, I can do this, we can do this. I think to me, that is the starting point. So when the question of the women living in arid and semi-arid environments, and they want to participate in animal trade. So it's a sort of, I think it is the same dilemma we are in. And we have to start, the women have to start with the mindset change. How can we work with the local leaders? How can we change our situation? What can be done? There is a cattle trade. The men are there. So who are the key decision makers? How can we work with these people? How can we work with the local leaders? So I would say there is a need to that mindset change to see how they can work with the leaders. Of course, the issues again of skills. The with the capacity building, is there anything, if men sell the cattle, are there any maybe skins, hides or whatever? Can you sell maybe the feeds or something like that? There has to be something that adds value in terms of that cattle market. If men are saying we are selling our cattle, so are you going to sit back and wait? And the same goes to maybe the access to resources. If you're going to business, into drugs or something like that. So the issue of mindset change and knowing that you have the capacity, or we as women have the capacity to be able to do something. And in this case, I think I would also suggest maybe sort of a cooperative. You said I've been working with women groups for a long time, and having an amplified voice is one of the best strategies. Because if you come together as women, you are all not being supported, you're together, and there's a cattle business. What else can you do? So that can give a stronger voice and maybe do something. So the same, I think, transits to what the question you have asked, or which I'm supposed to address. What can actually be done? And to me, we start with what we need to consider the context. That the women in the arid area there, the women in India there, the women in Uganda here. What is your context? So within your context or the context, there has to be some context-specific solutions. For example, I live in Kampala. I don't stay at the border. I don't live near the border. But maybe the person who is near the border has a different bit of specificity that they can tap into. And this is where we need to tailor the approaches to these local contexts, the cultures, the needs. Because once I think we have so many, the economies are wide, the contexts are different. There are some generalities, but at the end of the day, you find that even if there are policies, they won't address the person the same way. So we have to look at these aspects. And the other aspect is it has been seen, I think, in most cases, even in business, and not one single company maybe can manage on its own. You either have the value chain, you have the partners, you have whatever. So we also have to be looking into partnerships and associations and what is it that maybe brings us together and capitalize on that. So the collaboration becomes very critical. Do we have women associations in Uganda that can link with those ones in South Africa so that it is easier maybe to export or to learn or to find where they can link with our value chain or something like that. So the partnerships are becoming very, very, very critical. The other consideration these days is the technology. We are here talking and doing whatever, but the technology has to be very critical in whatever we are doing. The AI has come in, e-trading has come in, e-markets have come in, e-learning has come in, What are we doing about it? And especially for our women. We are here maybe talking to a number of women I've seen across different countries. Maybe one is speaking something. So what if we extend it into leadership, into advocacy, into business? So we need to learn also to, like you're saying, not to sit and wait and ask, but also explore our potential, explore the opportunities around us and be able to see how we can look into that. There are so many, I think it's about maybe the strategies, but I think they are, like I said, you need to look at the specific context. But what I want to emphasize is maybe on regulations, just the border procedures, are they streamlined? Do we know them? How can we make the women know them or not fear them? The export, I can't go to Kenya. I've never been there. I can't export. How do they even export? Maybe you have the capital, but even the fear of just exporting, that unknown is there. There's also the need to, at least the bureaucracy. By the time you export, go to this ministry, get the certification, get the standard, hey, at the end of the day, maybe there are too many, or there are too much. Or maybe we also need to grow thick skin like men and say, yeah, it is tough, but I'm also going to do it. Yeah, if somebody can do it, why not me? And I'm here just say, I can't go. I've never been to Tanzania. I've never been to South Africa. How do I export? What is even there? Read, find out, ask, interact, network, so that we can be able to do this. So that business of holding ourselves and crying, we are marginalized. We are getting less. We are not whatever. So we need to break out of this and say that maybe something has to be done. And one of the ways I think maybe it can be done is, I think the information hubs. I don't know whether it is the government or the private sector or NGO or NGOs like the women NGOs, but where can I find this information? How can I be supported? Are there hubs within these different countries where you can put it there, or you say, these are the trade rules, these are the tariffs, these are the whatever, these are the major things, some of the key things you need to do. And yeah, of course, also the money is needed, even for that e-commerce, for that whatever. So we have to look into ways into which there are most of these cross-country organizations, institutions, the African Development Bank, the PTA Bank, the whatever. What are they doing? How can we make them be part of this process? When they come in, they work again with the commercial banks or something like that. So we need to see how we can tap into them and provide monies for the women that need this. Yeah, of course, I think there are so many aspects in terms of market access, finance, skills. Yeah, but most importantly, we also need to find somewhere where somebody said we want to be on the table for the decision makers when they are doing this. They say, we want to do something. You said it nicely. We want to do something for the women. What can we do for you? Is it
exactly. That's what Robert does not want to hear.
What can we do for you? Yeah, you're like, you're big, pampered, big, whatever. No, you're a businesswoman. Yes, what do we? Yeah, this is what we want. Not what you can do for me, but what we can do together. What are we going to do? And somebody, I think, has been this analogy where I'm saying that if they are not inviting you to the table, and you make your own table and you be the one to invite and serve and do all those. Anyway, so we need to see how we can create these spaces in policy making into at least how our concerns can be incorporated. So we need that affirmative action. We need that mindset change in our own selves, in what we can do, in what we are capable of doing. How can we raise our own voice? How can we bring our voice together and say that there's something changes? So this, at least the African Continental Free Trade Area, it has some provisions. I think we can maybe start with those and see A, B, C, D. These are the areas where it is making space for women. But what is more? Are they working? Are they not working? How can we add on? How can we revise this so that it actually is applicable? It is done. It can be done. So I think, to me, those are some of the issues we need to look into. somebody was talking about maybe research. We can do more research. I think the other day I was joking with somebody. I said, is there any area that is remaining which has not been researched?
Mm.
Maybe we need to do more, but sometimes you feel like asking more questions may be too much. But whatever you have, start on that and maybe ask questions as you move along, rather than we need this comprehensive study to see what is being done. And whatever maybe is working, then we see ways in which we can scale it up. If it is working here, how can we make it work for the others? And of course, that I think is very, very, very important. So to me, those are some of the way I look at it. And it is very crucial. By the time we leave women behind, we are left behind again and again, and the gap is widening. We are not even closing it. It's widening. With the new technology, new whatever, I don't have how to use the smartphone. I don't know how to, somebody is there clicking away. So we need to get back on the game. And to me, the empowerment of women, the skilling, the women being part of this, it's not just a goal. It is a necessity if we are going to have the Africa we want. So to me, that is what I think we need to change and believe in ourselves and do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what I wanted to summarize from there as well. So I like just that part. We need to realize our potential and also our strength. And the mind shift change is actually key in all that. But yeah, with all these solutions that you proposed, we are aware, yes. And I like what Robert said earlier on. Yes, we might not be able to change anything, but at least we are bringing awareness into what can be done and what people are needing. So you highlighted really quite a lot of issues that Robert as well highlighted. You mentioned about the bureaucracy, sometime even, crossing one border to another, one country to another, the border, it's, the process is just cumbersome. It's just so complicated. So let's try to bring Mr. Robert in and him working from one of those places that could potentially have influence. I think your data, Robert, will influence. Obviously, policies are influenced by data, by what happens. So I think from your perspective, I know you earlier on you did speak about access to finance, which is, access to productive resources, and those are some of the recommendations that you have. But we're also hearing about all the challenges that women are still facing. So from your point of view, Robert, and I like the way you are supporting women, it's not what we can do for women, but what can we do with women, and you are part of this discussion. Now, how can we improve all those procedures, bureaucracy, even when it is from crossing borders or maybe access to finance? You were talking earlier on about, the bank is a business and they don't care about collateral, whether you have it or not, they have to make their money, but somewhere maybe the policy can also try to alleviate that. How do you think, the governments need to improve those procedures and policies and eliminate some of the bureaucracies to ensure what women need?
Mostly excites me is when those are moments when you have discussions on what will lift people from the conditions they are in and to a more comfortable conditions. I'm one of the people who have advocated for improvement in welfare and mostly that's one of my passionate areas, improvement in welfare for both men and women. And given that a lot of evidence show that women are left behind in terms of welfare improvements and so on. Where there are some studies, specifically, I may not talk about the specific study, but one of the things from what I have read and what I keep on to read is that when you give a woman an extra dollar from what she has been having, and when you give a man an extra dollar, that extra dollar given to a woman has a lot of things it does compared to what a man can do. First of all, we see when you give an extra dollar to a woman, the first thing she thinks about that is that's improvement on welfare of the entire family, including children's education, children's feeding, and so on. And we know, even in terms of long-term growth prospects, that's why we have so many other countries that have surpassed us. We have ignored so many basic things in terms of care on children, education of children, and so on. And that's where now this discussion would maybe revolve. An extra dollar given to a woman is more productive than an extra dollar given to a man. And we have read so many books that gives us that evidence. And if we don't now empower women to have that extra dollar, then there is a problem, because there is an increase in productivity as a result of women participating in labor, in trade, and so many other productive economic activities. And going back to what my colleagues and who I would say my elders have talked about, Elizabeth has proposed one of the greatest things. You know, we can discuss, next day we shall discuss, and another day we shall discuss. But discussions may not change things the way we expect them. The only thing the discussion can do is that discussions can help us identify where the problems are, which we have already identified, which our people have already identified, and so on. Elizabeth has proposed something in relation to trade. I think if women can also, those who are here now, including me, because now I'm going to be part of you, if we can work hand in hand together to move on with that one, it would be our starting point. The other part is the doctor has talked about something, Dr. Daisy, which is a great thing. And among the things he has talked about, one is that we need to start, we got to start. You cannot say, he keep on saying, we need help, we need help. The help may not come, I'm telling you. In this world we are in, both men and women at an individual level, people are pulling what is in for me, what is in for me, and so on. So if you don't start, you may not wait for any other person to help. The other part, in terms of structures, what we need to start now discussing, because you see, development happens it's not an overnight. We know women have contributed, they are already in, but the issue is they are not progressing as much as they should be progressing. Development doesn't happen in one night. We know it will come, but now what do we do? Some of the discussions need to happen. For example, issues around property rights and ownership, the succession rights. I can tell you, you see what we are advocating for is if I trace back, there would bear me witness 30 to 40 years back. In Uganda, women never used to be taken as serious. So, if I give an example, imagine you have a household where you have 2 boys and 2 girls. And the finance was not enough. Financing was not enough. What the parents would do is that in terms of education, even if a girl has passed more than a boy, I can assure you parents would make sure that a boy goes to school and the girl remains behind. Even when the brain for the girl is outstanding more than a boy. But now because of that structure, how the economy was structured by then, there are things we are forcing now. Because the economy by then, 40 to 30 years back, girls never used to go to school as much as boys. But now we have an issue where we are advocating for equal opportunities. Now the equal opportunities, if you trace back 30 years, 40 years back, the equal opportunities in leadership, it's like we are forcing things that cannot work. From the beginning, if girls were not going to school, but now you want leadership to be. You see, there is a mismatch. It may not be possible, given that the beginning didn't favor them. So if 20 girls in a certain year, in a certain country, would afford to go to a university, and more than 200 boys could afford school, and now what we see at the higher level is a result of that structure. So you would not say now 50 girls should take leadership position. But remember, it's only 20 who attended the school for 200 boys who attended the school. So what we see is the result of the structure that was there by then. So what I now love is that these discussions are happening. Meaning we are breaking what we are doing. Firstly, we are breaking the structures. Before we say, let's have these opportunities, let's break the structures that limit us from having those opportunities. And I think these discussions, like I said, even if we don't contribute much, but we have identified problems, and these problems are going to be worked on. They may not be worked on immediately, but slowly by slowly we shall have progress. Because when you look at what we see in the African Continental Free Trade Area, there is a protocol that was brought up in 2024 for women and youth who are supposed to be in trade. It provides everything. But the issue is, if you want women to be in trade, in the first place, have you allowed them to acquire capital, collateral? How can they be in trade? They have to acquire collateral. So the issue is we first break these structural barriers, like access to land ownership. Like I said, the marriage arrangements issues may not be a one-day issue, but we should start advocating for it. I'm not saying that those rights shouldn't be performed, but what I'm saying is that those who are at the supply side, the way they view them is different from how they should look like. Many view them as if they have paid the price. And so what we need is now the mindset change, not on the side of women, because women were born when that is what is there, but now we should look for a boy child as well. You see, even when you perform these rights, it doesn't make you the head of the household. In other words, the head of the household or the decision maker is the one who can afford to make decisions, not specifically basing on gender type, the genotype. So the other part is what have been there, and we may not break them at this point. Then we should have the financing issue proposed by the government, where we can have separate investments which are moved by women and they are financed. If women can put themselves in one group, they can be financed by the government with the interest or the cost of credit different from men. Given that those structures were there and now we cannot break them, but what do we do now is that we advocate the government have those side financing issues, but aside from them, women have to move a step ahead and say, what this is doing, I can as well do. And you also do it. You don't wait at the receiving end. Because if you keep on waiting at the receiving end, you say, I'm supposed to be taken care of. Someone who is taking care of. That's what we are seeing even in the world. The aid we are receiving is why we are continuing to be treated like slaves, because we are receiving aid. So at micro level, if you are a woman and you think every day you have to receive, there is a problem. You may not be taken serious. So they have to wake up and act. That is the core. Some of the problems are structural and mindset change. It's not that women are not, but they are participating, but at low capacity. So once those are done, which is a slowly by slowly, I know we will get there. We have potential to get there. And thank you for that.
Thank you so much. We will definitely get there. Women are changing their minds. Women are the forefront of economic activities, and we shall get there. So just one more maybe intervention from Elizabeth, really just complementing what you've said before. You know, we are looking at how we can create that bridge of Europe. Before I get to the audience final comment, let's just hear from you. You know, if we are to create you in Europe, in Africa, and we are looking at creating this bridge that will be led by women, you know, what strategic sectors, you know, should women, African women, prioritize if really we are to play a very strong role in shaping this continent economic sovereignty, you know, through obviously trade?
Yeah, honestly, from my experience as a businesswoman, I never look to the market with frontiers, borders. I think, honestly, that the opportunity is the way we get and we catch the opportunities, put together and work together on it. Is the way I have been doing in my business activity as partner of Pulsar. And this way work, you know. Of course, we have different resource and we need to look for this resource in first place, for instance, in Africa, but you need to look to our resource too. So this is not a question of we have this, you have this. No, how we can together make the things happen. If we have the resource, we can share with you this resource because you have the complement for this. So honestly, I think we need to be more market oriented. This is for me a strategy very important in my personal life, in my professional life. Is we need to be market oriented, like Robert said. We need to have plans. We need to have market information to take decisions. not too much, because if not, we are not able to decide. But the main information, and honestly, I believe, not I think, I believe that we can make a lot if we identify the gaps, and instead to find problems, we be in the market as a finder, a solutions finder. Maybe this can sound like, oh, she's telling about the sex of the angels. No, it's not. And this is what we have as women. We are pragmatics. We need to be wives. We need to be mothers. We need to be housekeepers. We need to be workers. We need to make the change. We are living nowadays difficult days. We look to the future and we don't know what's happening tomorrow. But we fight, we go, we make the things happen. I think this is something in our ADN that is amazing. And the men doesn't have. They are more, I'm sorry, Robert.
And many others in the room.
Oh, I'm so sorry to all of you. But we need to be different. And it is in this difference, in this different perspectives and different way to act, that we can add value. I'm not intending to make the same as my colleagues, men colleagues, does. No, I don't. I do the things in my way, with my feelings, with my instincts, with my always trying to find solution instead to cry and to be. And so this is from my experience and I have difficulties too. I live in Portugal, is a poor country. Okay. We have a lot of difficulties to access to finance funds, and all this is for that I move to an international company. This was my best decision in my life. Okay. I jump to the world instead to be here in Portugal or even in Europe. I have partners in Asia, in India, whatever. Okay, in Lebanon that are yesterday before sleeping, I was writing to a friend of mine, a partner of mine, a woman, an amazing woman, saying, if you need something, I'm here. Okay, for everything. And this is something that we women have. It's not fair. It's not. It's not something without content. No, I think we have this, and this is our big difference in the way we think and try to do the things. And it's for that I believe that. Besides these 4 amazing forums of discussion, I'm with you, I'm with this association and another. Sometimes can I confess one thing? Sometimes I think we are always crying. We need to move. We need to do the things. We need to break what we identify that stop our initiatives, and together and with them, our colleagues men. Okay. And this is my challenge. I think my contribution to be here with all these amazing people is to bring what I have and share with you what I have. This is my main contribution. It's not words, it's not strategy. All of you, okay, know well to do, to plan, to think. I'm not bringing nothing of this, but I can make the difference with the access I have, and share this access to all of you. This is for me the main and the main asset that I can bring to this group.